With me now is Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware and a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees. Sir, it's good to see you as always. Thanks for being with us. And I want to read for you part of a statement from Brian Fallon. He's the executive director of the progressive advocacy group Demand Justice. And he said this about Senator Feinstein. She has undercut Democrats' position at every step of this process. If Senate Democrats are going to get their act together on the courts going forward, they cannot be led by someone who treats the Republican theft of a Supreme Court seat with kid gloves. Is he right? Do Democrats need new leadership? At least on that committee.
Well, let's be clear about Senator Feinstein's long record of leadership on reproductive rights, on gender rights. We were in a very difficult, a contentious hearing where the Republican majority is jamming through an extreme and unqualified candidate who should not serve on the Supreme Court solely because her views on the Supreme Court on whether or not to go back and overturn precedent are well outside the mainstream. Senator Feinstein made that clear while I was there at the Judiciary Committee in her questioning of Judge Barrett, in her statements at the beginning and end of the hearing. Broadly, she made it clear that she does not see Judge Barrett as being an appropriate person to follow in the footsteps of Justice Ginsburg, whose seat is being filled. And she pushed back on whether or not this is an appropriate process. I recognize in that clip you just played that she was being gracious, trying to add a little bit of bipartisanship to a committee that has been sharply divided ever since Republicans outrageously held open for 10 months the seat of former Justice Scalia and refused to give Judge Garland the courtesy of even meetings, let alone a hearing or a vote. There are many in my party who continue to be angry and upset at the ways in which Republicans have used the Senate Judiciary Committee and Chairman Graham in particular to move through a conveyor belt of unqualified and sharply conservative judges. That has packed the federal judiciary with more than 200 confirmed judges over the last 4 years. I understand why many are calling for a sharper tactic and tone by our ranking member. But I just wanted to make sure, Jeff, I'm clear that she has a long record of fighting for progressive causes on the court and has stood up for the legacy of Justice Ginsburg.
And while we're talking about the Supreme Court, at last night's town hall, Joe Biden, who you support, gave his most extensive answer yet on whether he supports expanding the court beyond the 9-justice bench. He said it depends, and that he's open to considering what happens with the confirmation vote. As we know, Joe Biden is a moderate. He's an institutionalist. He said before that he doesn't see himself being in favor of so-called packing the court. What would get him to yes? What would get him to adding more justices to the bench to preserve, landmark rulings like Roe v. Wade, and, as many progressives see it, being a fitting counterbalance given the fact that, as they see it, Republicans have stolen one Supreme Court seat and are on track to potentially steal another one as they see it?
Well, Jeff, this last week was clear proof that the Republican majority is unwilling to listen to arguments about precedent, about trying to work together and trying to find a path that doesn't include jamming Judge Barrett into the Supreme Court seat recently vacated by former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg dedicated her life to gender equality, to fighting for privacy, to fighting for an expansive vision of rights for LGBTQ Americans. That's why I made it clear in my closing yesterday, I plan to vote against Judge Barrett. And former Vice President Biden, in his remarks last night, made it clear that he still holds out some hope that Republicans might step back from this precipice. But no one is more clear-eyed than Joe about how Mitch McConnell held open against all rules and precedent. The seats that are now being filled have been filled by President Trump in the federal judiciary. Joe Biden served in the Senate for 36 years, yes, and he was part of the Senate when it was more functional, when folks were able to work together and resolve people's problems. But he also knows full well the cost of Mitch McConnell's obstructionism during the Obama-Biden administration. So he's holding back out of some hope that after President Trump is defeated, there may yet be some small window for us to work together with Republicans. But he's clear-eyed about the challenges and the choices that may lie ahead.
Let's talk about President Trump's town hall last night, hosted by NBC News, where he all but admitted he owes $400 million to creditors. Take a look at this.
Are you confirming that, yes, you do owe some $400 million?
What I'm saying is that it's a tiny percentage of my net worth. I don't owe Russia money. I owe a very, very small, it's called mortgages.
Yeah.
People have a house, they put a mortgage.
Any foreign bank, any foreign entity?
Not that I know of, but I will probably, because it's so easy to solve, and if you'd like to do, I will let you know who I owe whatever small amount of money.
So you sit on Senate Foreign Relations. What are the consequences of a president of the United States being on the hook for $400 million and not telling the American people to whom he owes that money?
Well, that's not a small amount of money to the average American. $400 million is a significant amount of debt to have exposure on, particularly when a lot of his developments are around the world. And in particular, when President Trump, despite promising for 4 years he was about to release his taxes, never has. And frankly, I'll remind you, he has promised for 4 years he would release a plan for how to secure Americans' health care. Remember, he was going to repeal and replace Obamacare with a better plan. He's never done that. So we haven't seen his taxes. We don't know who he owes this much money to. We don't know how that may complicate his relations around the world. And we still don't have a clear plan for how he would get us through this pandemic and make America healthier and safer and stronger. To me, Jeff, this is just another example of how he's played hide the ball on his own entanglements around the world and hasn't been transparent with us about the ways in which, if reelected, he might impact the health and the security of all Americans.
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.